The massive space station hung in the darkness like a silver wheel, spinning slowly around the bright star Kepler 442. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its ports every day. This was the Galactic Council Station, where alien races met to talk about trade, war, and peace. Ambassador Zixthera stood tall in the main meeting hall. Her purple skin gleamed under the bright lights, and her forearms moved as she spoke to the crowd of aliens around her. She was from the Veltar Empire, one of the strongest military powers in the galaxy. Her people were known for their quick victories and brutal tactics. "The Outer Rim systems are weak," she said, her voice carrying across the room. "They have resources we need. It is time to take them." Near the back of the room, an old alien shifted uncomfortably. Elder Quindar was ancient, even by the standards of his long-lived people. His gray skin was wrinkled like old leather, and his 6 eyes showed deep worry. He had lived long enough to see many wars, and he remembered things that others had forgotten. "You speak too quickly of war," the old alien said, standing slowly. "There are dangers you do not understand." Zixthera turned to look at him, her eyes narrowing. "What dangers, old one? The Rim worlds have small fleets and weak armies. They will fall in days." "I speak of the humans," Quindar said quietly. A low sound of laughter came from many aliens in the room. The humans were new to the galaxy. They had only made contact with other races 50 years ago. Their ships were simple, their weapons basic, and their territory small. "The humans?" Zixthera laughed, showing her sharp teeth. "They are like children playing with toys. What threat could they possibly pose?" Quindar's old eyes grew sad. "You do not know them as I do. My people have studied them for many years. We have watched their world from far away. They are different from us." "Different how?" another alien called out. "They do not forget," Quindar said. "When someone hurts them, they remember forever. When one of their own is harmed, all of them feel the pain. They will cross the entire galaxy to protect each other." More laughter filled the room. War leader Kethvar, Zixthera's military commander, stepped forward. He was even larger than the ambassador, with thick armor covering his body and scars, marking his face from many battles. "Old fool," Kethvar said. "I have seen the human ships. They are small and slow. Their weapons are primitive. One of our battle cruisers could destroy 10 of their vessels." "You measure strength wrong," Quindar warned. "Yes, their ships are smaller than ours. Yes, their weapons are simpler. But you do not understand what drives them. Other races fight for territory or resources. Humans fight for each other." At that moment, the main doors to the hall opened. 3 humans walked in, wearing simple blue uniforms. The crowd grew quiet as they approached. Humans were still rare in these meetings, and many aliens had never seen them up close. Captain Jake Morrison led the small group. He was a middle-aged man with short brown hair and calm eyes. Behind him walked Chief Engineer Lisa Brooks, a woman with blonde hair tied back in a neat ponytail. The third human was Security Officer Pete Collins, a tall man with dark skin and watchful eyes. "Honored delegates," Morrison said, bowing slightly. "We come from the human colonies to discuss trade agreements." Zixthera looked down at the human captain with obvious disgust. "So these are the famous humans. You look even weaker than I expected." Morrison kept his voice steady and polite. "We come in peace, Ambassador. Our people want only to trade fairly, with all races." "Peace." Kethvar laughed. "What do humans know of strength? Your entire fleet could not defeat one of our patrol squadrons." Lisa Brooks stepped forward slightly. "We prefer to build rather than destroy, war leader. Our colonies produce goods that many worlds need." "Your colonies," Zixthera said slowly, as if tasting the words. "Yes, I have heard of them. Small settlements on worthless worlds. It must be lonely out there, so far from help." Pete Collins tensed at the threat in her voice, but Morrison raised his hand slightly to keep his officer calm. "Our colonies are peaceful places," Morrison said. "Families live there, children grow up there. We want no trouble with anyone." "Of course you want no trouble," Zixthera replied. "The weak always prefer peace, but the strong take what they need." Elder Quindar watched this exchange with growing alarm. He could see what was happening. The Veltar were testing the humans, looking for weakness. They thought Morrison's calm words meant fear. "Ambassador," Quindar called out, "perhaps we should discuss this matter more carefully." "There is nothing to discuss," Zixthera said firmly. "The humans offer us nothing we cannot simply take." She turned back to Morrison. "Your trade proposals are rejected. Your species has no value to the Galactic Council." Morrison's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice level. "That is your choice, Ambassador. We will return to our people and tell them of your decision." As the humans turned to leave, Kethvar spoke again. "Tell your people something else, Captain. Tell them that space is dangerous. Accidents happen to small colonies far from home." Morrison stopped walking. For a moment, something cold flashed in his eyes. But then he nodded slowly and continued toward the door. After the humans left, most of the aliens began talking excitedly about other matters. But Quindar remained standing, his old heart heavy with worry. "You have made a terrible mistake," he said to Zixthara. "What mistake?" "They are weak and helpless." "That is what you do not understand," Quindar replied. "Humans do not show their strength the way we do. They do not threaten or boast. But when you harm them, when you hurt their families, they become something else entirely." "And what is that?" Zixthara asked mockingly. "Unstoppable," the old alien said quietly. "I have seen their history. They have fought wars that lasted for generations. They have crossed oceans and continents to hunt down their enemies. They never give up and they never forgive." Kethvar laughed again. "Let them try to hunt us. We have the strongest fleet in this sector." Quindar shook his head sadly. "Fleet, strength will not matter. You think this is about military power. It is not. It is about something deeper, something you have never faced before." "And what is that?" "Love," Quindar said simply. "They love their people so much that they will do anything to protect them, anything to avenge them. You can destroy their ships, but you cannot destroy their will. You can kill their soldiers, but more will take their place. You can run to the edge of the galaxy, but they will follow you." Zixthera waved her hand dismissively. "Sentimental nonsense." "Perhaps," Quindar said. "But I warn you one last time, do not assault the humans, because if you do, they will never let you go." 3 weeks had passed since the meeting at the Galactic Council station. War Leader Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dark Spear, watching the small planet grow larger on his screen. Titan's Rest was a human mining colony on the edge of known space. It looked peaceful from orbit, with small cities scattered across the green continents. "How many humans live down there?" Kethvar asked his weapons officer. "Our scans show about 3,000, War Leader. Most are miners, and their families. They have a small security force, maybe 50 soldiers." Kethvar smiled, showing his sharp teeth. 50 soldiers against my fleet of 20 ships. This will be over quickly." Behind him, Ambassador Zixthera watched the planet with cold eyes. "Make sure the message is clear. Other worlds need to see what happens when weak species refuse to bow to the Veltar Empire." On the planet below, Administrator Nancy Wright sat in her office reviewing the morning reports. Titan's Rest was a good place to live. The mining was profitable, the weather was pleasant, and families felt safe raising their children there. Nancy had been running the colony for 5 years, and she was proud of what they had built. A sharp alarm suddenly filled the air. Nancy jumped up as her communication device buzzed with an urgent message. "Administrator Wright," came the voice of Sergeant Kyle Murphy from the colony's security center. "We have 20 unknown ships entering orbit. They're not responding to our signals." Nancy felt her stomach drop. "Are they human ships?" "No, ma'am. The computer says they're Veltar design, military vessels." Nancy closed her eyes for a moment. She remembered the stories from the Galactic Council meeting. Captain Morrison had warned all the colonies to be careful. The Veltar had made threats. "Sound the general alarm," she ordered. "Get all civilians to the emergency shelters. Contact the evacuation ships and tell them to prepare for immediate departure." "Yes, ma'am." What about the mining equipment? Forget the equipment, lives are more important. Across the colony, sirens began to wail. Families grabbed their children and rushed toward the underground shelters. At the spaceport, workers frantically prepared 3 small evacuation ships. These vessels were meant to carry supplies, not people, but they were the only way off the planet. Tom Bradley was working in Mine Shaft 7 when the alarm started. He was a big man with calloused hands and a kind face. He had come to Titans, rest 5 years ago with his wife and 2 young children. The mining job paid well, and his kids loved exploring the safe forests around their home. "What's happening?" asked Maria Santos, another miner who worked alongside Tom. She was a small woman with quick hands and a sharp mind. Her husband worked in the colony's computer center. "I don't know," Tom replied, "but we need to get to the surface." They rode the elevator up from the deep mines, along with 30 other workers. When they reached the surface, they could see the dark shapes of ships in the sky. Even from the ground, the vessels looked huge and threatening. At the security center, Sergeant Murphy watched his scanners with growing fear. The alien ships were moving into attack positions. His 50 security officers had basic weapons and light armor. They were trained to handle small problems, not a military invasion. "Sergeant," one of his officers called out, "the aliens are trying to communicate. Put them through." The voice that came through the speakers was harsh and cold. It was War Leader Kethvar speaking in broken human language. "Humans of this world, you have 10 minutes to surrender completely. Lay down all weapons. Gather in the main square. Resist and die." Murphy grabbed his microphone. "This is Sergeant Kyle Murphy of the Titans Rest Security Force. This colony is under the protection of the Human Space Command. Leave immediately, or face the consequences." Kethvar's laughter filled the room. "What consequences, little human? Your nearest warship is weeks away. You are alone." Murphy looked around at his officers. They were scared, but they were ready to fight. These were good people protecting their families and friends. "We may be alone," Murphy said into the microphone, "but we will not surrender to murderers. Then you will die." The first attack came from the sky. Bright beams of energy struck the colony's communication center, destroying it completely. More beams hit the power station and the water treatment plant. The Veltar were not trying to capture the colony, they were trying to destroy it. Administrator Wright ran through the chaos, trying to help families reach the shelters. Buildings were burning around her. She could hear children crying and adults shouting. The evacuation ships were trying to take off, loaded with as many people as they could carry. One of the ships made it into the air. Nancy watched it climb toward space, carrying 200 people to safety. But then the Veltar fighters attacked it. The small evacuation ship had no weapons and no armor. It exploded in a ball of fire, killing everyone inside. "No!" Nancy screamed. But her voice was lost in the sound of more explosions. Tom Bradley and Maria Santos were helping people get to the shelters when they saw the evacuation ship destroyed. Maria fell to her knees, sobbing. Her husband had been on that ship. "Maria, we have to keep moving," Tom said gently, helping her stand. "Carlos would want you to survive." They reached the nearest shelter just as Veltar ground troops began landing. The alien soldiers were huge and heavily armed. They wore dark armor and carried weapons that could cut through metal. But they were not just trying to capture the colony. They were killing anyone they found. Sergeant Murphy and his security force tried to fight back. They used the buildings for cover and made the aliens pay for every street. But it was hopeless. For every Veltar soldier they stopped, 10 more took his place. Murphy was hiding behind an overturned vehicle when he saw something that made his blood freeze. A group of Veltar soldiers had found one of the family shelters. Instead of taking prisoners, they threw explosives inside. The shelter collapsed, killing the 50 people hiding there. "They're not taking prisoners," Murphy said into his radio. "They're murdering everyone. This isn't a conquest, it's genocide." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, most of Titan's Rest was burning ruins. The Veltar had killed 2,147 humans, men, women, and children, miners, teachers, doctors, and farmers. They had targeted the medical center where wounded people sought help. They had destroyed the schools where children hid. As the Veltar ships prepared to leave, Kethvar looked down at the smoking planet with satisfaction. "The message is sent," he told Zixthara. "Other human colonies will see this and surrender without a fight." "Good," the ambassador replied. "Fear is the best weapon." They did not know that one evacuation ship had escaped. It was badly damaged and barely flying, but it carried 43 survivors, including Tom Bradley and Maria Santos. The ship's communication system was broken, but its emergency beacon was still working. 2 days later, Captain Morrison's ship, the New Horizon, received the beacon's signal. Morrison ordered his crew to maximum speed, but he feared they were too late. When they arrived at Titan's Rest, they found only death and destruction. The cities were burned, the mines were collapsed. Bodies lay in the streets, and the air still smelled of smoke. Morrison walked through the ruins with his officers, Lisa Brooks and Pete Collins. They had seen battles before, but nothing like this. This was not war. This was murder. They found a few survivors hiding in the deep mine shafts. Tom Bradley was among them, badly hurt, but alive. When he saw the human uniforms, he began to cry. "They killed everyone," he whispered. "The children, the old people, everyone. They destroyed the evacuation ships. They bombed the medical centers." Morrison knelt beside the injured man. "You're safe now. We're going to get you help." "Captain," Tom grabbed Morrison's arm. "You have to stop them. They can't be allowed to do this to other worlds." Morrison nodded slowly. Something cold and hard was growing in his chest. It was not just anger. It was something deeper and more dangerous. Lisa Brooks was scanning the area with her equipment. "Captain, I'm picking up signals from the colony's computer system. The security cameras were still recording when the attack happened." "Download everything," Morrison ordered. "I want a complete record of what happened here." As they worked to rescue the survivors and gather evidence, Morrison sent a message back to Earth. It was a simple message, but it would change everything. "Titan's Rest colony has been destroyed. 2,147 civilians murdered by Veltar forces. No, survivors were spared. They targeted evacuation ships and medical facilities. This was not war. This was genocide." When that message reached Earth, something awakened in humanity that had been sleeping. It was something the Veltar did not understand. It was something Elder Quindar had tried to warn them about. The humans would never forget, and they would never forgive. 6 months had passed since the destruction of Titan's Rest. War leader Kethvar stood in his private quarters aboard the Dark Spear, looking at reports from his scouts. He expected to see human colonies surrendering out of fear. Instead, he saw something that confused him. The humans were not surrendering, they were building more ships. "This makes no sense," Kethvar said to his aide. "We destroyed one of their worlds completely. They should be begging for peace." His aide, a young Veltar officer named Vextai, looked nervous. "War leader, our spies report that humans from every world are joining their military. They are building ships faster than ever before." Kethvar threw the reports on his desk in anger. "They are fools. Do they want us to destroy more of their colonies?" What Kethvar did not understand was that he had made the worst possible mistake. He had shown humans exactly what the Veltar were capable of, and now every human in the galaxy knew that their families were in danger. On Earth, Admiral Frank Hamilton sat in the Human Space Command headquarters, surrounded by screens showing ship construction, troop training, and resource allocation. He was a calm man with gray hair and steady hands, but his eyes burned with cold fire. "How many ships do we have ready for combat?" he asked Colonel Amy Pierce, his chief of operations. 237 warships, Admiral. Another 400 will be ready within 3 months. "Not fast enough," Hamilton said. "I want every shipyard working at full capacity. I want every colony contributing resources. I want every human who can hold a weapon trained for combat." Colonel Pierce was a tough woman who had spent 20 years in the military. She had seen many conflicts, but never anything like this. "Admiral, the Galactic Council is asking for negotiations. They say the Veltar are willing to pay compensation for Titan's Rest." Hamilton's voice was ice cold. "Compensation? They murdered nearly 3,000 civilians. They targeted children and medical workers. They destroyed evacuation ships full of families. He stood up slowly. Tell the Galactic Council that humans do not negotiate with murderers. Across the galaxy, other alien races were watching the human response with growing alarm. They had expected the humans to seek diplomatic solutions. Instead, humanity was mobilizing for total war. Elder Quindar met with other council members on the neutral station at Proxima Center. The old alien looked even more tired than before. The humans are not responding as we expected, said Ambassador Thelvar of the peaceful Zephyrian Republic. They refuse all attempts at mediation. I warned the Veltar, Quindar said sadly. Humans do not think like us. When we lose people in war, we mourn and then move forward. When humans lose their people to murder, they remember forever. But surely they must want peace eventually, said another ambassador. No species can maintain war indefinitely. Quindar shook his head. You still do not understand. This is not about territory or resources. This is about justice. The humans will not stop until every Veltar involved in the massacre is captured or dead. Meanwhile, Captain Ben Clark commanded the human heavy cruiser Retribution as it patrolled the outer rim systems. Clark was a big man with scarred hands and a quiet voice. He had lost his sister and her family on Titan's Rest. Captain, his communications officer called out. We're receiving a transmission from a Veltar patrol ship. They want to surrender. Clark looked at the alien ship on his screen. It was one of the vessels that had participated in the attack on Titan's Rest. His intelligence officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, had confirmed the ship's identity using survivors' testimonies. Open a channel, Clark ordered. The Veltar captain appeared on screen. He looked frightened. Human commander, we wish to surrender. We will leave this system immediately. You were at Titan's Rest, Clark said calmly. Yes, but we were following orders. We are willing to pay compensation. You killed children, Clark interrupted. You destroyed hospitals, you murdered people trying to evacuate. Please, we were just soldiers following commands. We do not want to fight anymore. Clark was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke into his microphone. All weapons, target the enemy ship. Wait, the Veltar captain shouted. We surrender. You cannot attack ships that surrender. You did not accept surrender from the evacuation ships at Titan's Rest, Clark replied. Fire. The Retribution's weapons turned the Veltar ship into glowing debris in seconds. Clark felt no satisfaction, only cold purpose. One ship down. 19 more to go. Dr. Helen Ross worked in the Intelligence Center on Luna Base, analyzing every piece of information about the Veltar Empire. She was a small woman with brown hair and sharp eyes. Her brother Danny had been a teacher on Titan's Rest. The Veltar had killed him along with his students when they bombed the school. I have the location of another target, she told Colonel Pierce during their daily briefing. The Veltar cruiser Bloodfang is hiding in the asteroid belt near Kepler 186. How do you know? Their supply ships have been making regular runs to that area. The ship needs food and fuel. They cannot hide forever. Colonel Pierce smiled grimly. Send the coordinates to Captain Morrison. His hunting group is closest to that sector. Captain, Morrison had been promoted and given command of 5 ships whose only job was tracking down the Veltar killers. His crew included many people who had lost family and friends on Titan's Rest. Maria Santos, the miner who had survived the attack, now worked as his reconnaissance specialist. Captain, Maria said as she studied her scanner readings, I have them. The Bloodfang is hiding behind the large asteroid trying to mask their heat signature. Morrison nodded. The Bloodfang had been one of the ships that destroyed the evacuation vessels. Its captain had personally ordered the bombing of the medical center. Signal the other ships, Morrison ordered. Surround the asteroid field. Do not let them escape. When the Veltar realized they were trapped, they tried to run. But human ships were faster and better coordinated. The Bloodfang was destroyed within minutes along with its entire crew. As the months passed, the pattern continued. Human intelligence networks tracked every Veltar ship that had participated in the massacre. Human hunting groups pursued them. across the galaxy. There were no negotiations, no mercy, and no escape. The Veltar tried hiding among neutral species, but humans found them anyway. They tried changing their ship designs, but human intelligence was too good. They tried splitting up their fleet, but humans hunted them individually. Other alien races began to understand that they were witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. The humans were not fighting a normal war. They were executing a campaign of justice that would continue until every guilty party was dead. Ambassador Zixathera met with war leader Kethavar in a secret location far from their home worlds. Both aliens looked tired and frightened. "We have lost 12 ships," Zixathera said. "The humans refuse all diplomatic contact. They will not negotiate." "How did we underestimate them so badly?" Kethavar asked. "Their individual ships are still weaker than ours." "It does not matter," Zixathera replied. "They have more ships than we do now, and they fight differently. Our captains expect honor in battle. The humans fight like hunters stalking prey." Kethavar thought about the reports from his surviving ship commanders. The humans did not engage in fair fights. They used multiple ships against single targets. They attacked supply lines and support vessels. They showed no mercy to enemies, who had shown no mercy at Titan's Rest. "What do you suggest?" he asked. "We need help from the other Veltar fleets. If we combine our forces—" "The other fleets will not help us," Kethavar said bitterly. "They say we brought this curse upon ourselves by attacking the humans. Meanwhile, the human war machine continued to grow. Every human world contributed: ships, soldiers, and resources. Mothers sent their sons to join the hunt. Fathers left their jobs to build weapons. Children studied star maps to help track the killers. Tom Bradley, the miner who had survived Titan's Rest, now served aboard Captain Clark's ship as a weapons specialist. His gentle nature had been burned away by what he had seen. He had become something harder and colder. "Tom," Captain Clark said as they prepared for another hunt, "are you sure you want to be here? You could go home, start a new life." Tom looked at the captain with empty eyes. Home was Titan's Rest. They destroyed it. "Until every one of those murderers is dead, I have no home." This was the truth that Elder Quindar had tried to warn the Veltar about. Humans did not fight for territory or resources. They fought for each other. And when someone hurt their people, especially their innocent people, humans became something that even they themselves had never seen before. They became unstoppable. The hunt continued. Every day more Veltar ships were found and destroyed. Every week more human vessels joined the search. The galaxy watched in amazement and terror as an entire species dedicated itself to a single purpose: justice for the dead of Titan's Rest and In the depths of space, the remaining Veltar ran and hid, finally understanding the warning they had ignored. The humans would never stop. They would never forgive. They would never let go. 2 years had passed since the massacre at Titan's Rest. War leader Kethavar no longer commanded a fleet. He commanded 7 broken ships hiding in an abandoned star system at the edge of known space. His once proud dark spear was damaged and running low on supplies. "War leader," his communications officer said quietly, "we are receiving surrender offers from 3 more of our patrol groups. They want to give up and face human justice." Kethavar slammed his fist on his command chair. "Cowards! We are Veltar, warriors. We do not surrender to inferior species." But even as he said the words, Kethavar knew they were hollow. The humans had proven they were not inferior. They had systematically destroyed 18 of the 20 ships that attacked Titan's Rest. They had hunted Veltar forces across half the galaxy. They had turned the hunters into the hunted. On the human command ship Justice, Admiral Morrison studied the latest intelligence reports. He was now the overall commander of what humans called the Titan's Rest Task Force. 300 ships, 20,000 personnel, and unlimited resources, all dedicated to one purpose. Admiral, his intelligence chief commander Rick Foster, pointed to a star map. "Our deep space reconnaissance teams have located another hiding spot. The Veltar are using an old mining station in the Vega Drift." Morrison nodded. "Commander, Foster was one of the best hunters in the fleet. He had spent 2 years learning to think like the Veltar, predicting where they would run next. How many ships? 4, including one of the original attack vessels from Titan's Rest. Send Captain Parker's squadron. Tell her to take them alive if possible, dead if necessary. Lieutenant Commander Jill Parker was 28 years old and had lost both her parents in the massacre. She commanded a squadron of fast attack ships crewed entirely by Titan's Rest survivors and their families. They called themselves the Vengeance Squadron, and they had never failed to complete a mission. Understood, Admiral, Parker replied over the communication link. We will bring justice to the murderers. Meanwhile, on the Galactic Council station, panic was spreading among the alien representatives. What had started as a local conflict was tearing apart the established order of galactic politics. Ambassador Thelvar of the Zephyrians stood before the emergency council session. The humans have rejected our 15th attempt at mediation. They will not accept any peace terms that do not include the capture of every Veltar individual involved in the massacre. That is impossible, protested Ambassador Hickstar of the Centaurian Federation. Some of those individuals are hiding among civilian populations. The humans would have to search every Veltar world. Elder Quindar, now ancient and frail, spoke from his wheelchair. That is exactly what they intend to do. The council chamber fell silent. The implications were staggering. The humans were not just fighting the Veltar military, they were prepared to go to war with the entire Veltar Empire. They cannot be serious, another ambassador said. The Veltar Empire has billions of citizens, hundreds of worlds, thousands of ships. The humans do not care, Quindar replied. They have something we have never seen before. They have perfect unity of purpose. Every human supports this war. Every human world contributes resources. They will not stop until justice is served. The truth of Quindar's words was becoming clear across the galaxy. Human shipyards were working at maximum capacity, producing new vessels every week. Human colonies that had never seen military ships were now building warships. Human civilians were volunteering for military service in numbers that amazed other species. Dr. Helen Ross, now the head of Human Intelligence Operations, briefed Admiral Morrison on the latest developments. Admiral, we have identified 1,247 individual Veltar who participated in the Titan's Rest massacre. This includes ship crews, support personnel, supply officers, and commanders. We have captured or killed 891 of them. 356 are still at large. Morrison studied the list of names and faces on his screen. Each one represented someone who had participated in the murder of innocent humans. Each one would face justice. What about the high-value targets? War leader Kethvar is still alive and hiding. Ambassador Zixthara escaped to the Veltar homeworld. The ship captains who personally ordered the bombing of evacuation vessels and medical facilities are our top priority. Keep hunting, Morrison ordered. No one escapes. At that moment, desperate messages were arriving at Veltar command centers throughout their empire. The humans had done something unprecedented. They had shared their evidence with every major galactic power. Video recordings from Titan's Rest security cameras. Testimony from survivors. Detailed analysis of the attack patterns. The galaxy could see exactly what the Veltar had done. They had murdered children. They had targeted hospitals. They had destroyed ships full of fleeing families. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. One by one, alien governments began withdrawing support from the Veltar Empire. Trade agreements were canceled. Diplomatic relations were suspended. Some species went further, offering to help the humans locate Veltar war criminals hiding in their territories. War leader Kethvar received the news while hiding in his damaged ship. His empire was collapsing. His allies were abandoning him. His own people were beginning to turn against him. War leader, his aide Vextai said nervously, we have a message from the Veltar High Council. They are offering to surrender you to the humans in exchange for peace. Kethvar felt rage and despair in equal measure. My own people betray me? They say you brought this curse upon the Empire by attacking the humans without authorization. It was true. Kethvar had ordered the attack on Titan's Rest without permission from the High Council. He had thought it would be a quick victory that would bring him glory. Instead, it had brought destruction to his entire civilization. What do the humans want, he asked. Complete surrender of all personnel involved in the massacre, public trials, full accountability for every death. Kethvar laughed bitterly. They want me to face their justice system. War leader, perhaps. We should consider— No, Kethvar said firmly. I am a Veltar warrior. I will not bow before humans. But his defiance was becoming meaningless. Every day, more of his people were captured or killed. Every week, more Veltar worlds declared neutrality or actively helped the humans. The empire that had seemed so strong 2 years ago was crumbling. Lieutenant Commander Parker's squadron found the Veltar ships hiding in the Vega Drift exactly where Commander Foster had predicted. The alien vessels tried to run, but human ships were faster and better coordinated. This is Lieutenant Commander Parker of the Human Space Command, she broadcast to the fleeing ships. You are wanted for crimes against humanity. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. The lead Veltar ship, the Crimson Blade, had been one of the vessels that bombed the medical center on Titan's Rest. Its captain, War Chief Drakvor, had personally ordered the targeting of wounded civilians. Human fools, Drakvor replied. We will never surrender to your inferior species. Then you will die like the murderers you are, Parker said coldly. The battle was brief and one-sided. Human weapons technology had improved dramatically during the 2-year hunt. The Veltar ships were destroyed one by one, their crews killed before they could escape. Parker watched the explosions with grim satisfaction. Her parents had been killed when the medical center was bombed. Justice had been served, but it felt hollow. No amount of revenge would bring her family back. Commander, her weapons officer said, we're detecting escape pods from the lead ship. Recover them, Parker ordered. If any of them are on our wanted list, they will face trial. This was what made the human campaign so terrifying to other species. They did not just want to win battles. They wanted individual accountability for every crime. They maintained detailed records of every Veltar who had participated in the massacre. They would hunt these individuals across the galaxy until all were captured or dead. As news of another human victory spread, Ambassador Zixithara sat in her chambers on the Veltar homeworld, reading surrender proposals from her own government. The High Council wanted to end the war by giving the humans everything they demanded. We could have been the masters of the galaxy, she said to her aide. Instead, we are being destroyed by a species we thought was weak. Ambassador, the humans, are offering terms. If we surrender all war criminals and accept their justice system, they will end their attacks on our civilian targets. Zixithara laughed bitterly. Their justice system. They want to put us on trial like common criminals. Perhaps it is better than complete destruction. Zixithara looked out her window at the Veltar capital city. It was still beautiful, still powerful, but human ships were coming. Every day they came closer to the heart of the Empire. Contact the human fleet, she said finally. Tell them I am willing to discuss terms. But even as she spoke, Zixithara knew it was too late. The humans had made their position clear. There would be no negotiations, no compromises, no mercy for those who had shown no mercy at Titan's Rest. The hunt would continue until every last war criminal faced justice, and the galaxy was beginning to understand that when humans made such a promise, they kept it no matter how long it took. 5 years had passed since the destruction of Titan's Rest. Major Steve Turner crouched behind a rocky outcrop on the barren mining world of Kepler 438c, watching the abandoned facility through his scope. His team of 12 soldiers had been tracking the last group of Veltar war criminals for 6 months. Major, whispered Sergeant Tom Bradley, the former miner who had survived the original massacre. I have visual confirmation. War leader Kethvar is in the main building along with his remaining officers. Turner nodded. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. The last of the mass murderers were finally cornered. There was nowhere left to run. Remember, Turner said quietly to his team, we want them alive if possible. The families of Titan's Rest deserve to see justice served in court. Among his soldiers was Maria Santos, now a decorated reconnaissance specialist. She had spent 5 years hunting the people who killed her husband. Her face was harder now, marked by years of grief and determination. They're scared, she reported. watching the alien movements through her scanner. They know we're here. Inside the abandoned facility, war leader Kethvar sat with the last 6 members of his original crew. They were the final survivors of the 20 ships that had attacked Titan's Rest. All the others were dead or captured. "War leader," said his aide Vextai, who had followed him faithfully for 5 years of running and hiding. "Perhaps it is time to surrender. The humans have promised fair trials." Kethvar laughed bitterly. "Fair trials? They will execute us all. At least here we can die fighting like warriors." But even as he spoke, Kethvar knew the truth. They were not warriors anymore. They were broken fugitives hiding in the ruins of a dead world. The mighty Veltar Empire that had seemed so powerful 5 years ago was gone. The humans had not just won the war, they had completely destroyed his civilization. "Sir," came Major Turner's voice through a loudspeaker, "this is Major Steve Turner of the Human Space Command. You are surrounded. Surrender now, and you will receive fair treatment under galactic law." Kethvar picked up a communication device. "Human soldiers, I am War Leader Kethvar of the Veltar Empire. We will not surrender to an inferior species." "War Leader," Turner replied calmly, "your empire no longer exists. Your homeworld surrendered 2 years ago. Your government has collapsed. You have no ships, no supplies, and no allies. This ends here." Through the facility's cracked windows, Kethvar could see human soldiers moving into position. They were professional and careful, taking no unnecessary risks. These were not the primitive warriors he had expected to face 5 years ago. These were expert hunters who had spent years perfecting their skills. "All units, move in," Turner ordered. The final battle lasted only minutes. The Veltar fought desperately, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. When the smoke cleared, Kethvar was wounded but alive. 3 of his officers were dead. The others were captured. As human medics treated his injuries, Kethvar looked up at Major Turner with confusion and rage. "Why do you keep us alive? Why not just kill us and be done with it?" Turner knelt beside the alien warrior. "Because that's not who we are. You murdered our people without trial or mercy. We will give you what you never gave them: justice." 6 months later, the trials began on Earth. The entire galaxy watched as the last Veltar war criminals faced human justice. The courtroom was filled with survivors from Titan's Rest and families of the victims. Tom Bradley sat in the front row, wearing his best civilian clothes. Beside him sat Maria Santos and dozens of other survivors. They had waited 5 years for this moment. The Human Prosecutor Attorney General David Chen presented the evidence methodically. Video recordings from Titan's Rest security cameras showed the Veltar deliberately targeting evacuation ships. Survivor testimony described the bombing of medical facilities. Computer records proved that the aliens had planned to kill every human on the planet. The defendants did not commit acts of war, Chen told the jury. They committed acts of genocide. They targeted civilians, children, medical workers, and fleeing refugees. They showed no mercy and accepted no surrender. War leader Kethvar was allowed to speak in his own defense. He stood before the court, his once proud armor replaced by simple prison clothes. "I am a soldier," he said. "I followed the customs of my people. In Veltar culture, complete victory requires the destruction of the enemy." "Even children?" asked the prosecutor. "Even doctors treating the wounded?" Kethvar was silent for a long moment. "I did not understand humans then. I thought you were weak because you valued mercy. And now? Now I understand that mercy is not weakness, it is strength. The strong protect the weak. They do not slaughter them." The trials lasted 3 months. Every crime was examined in detail. Every victim was remembered by name. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. When the verdicts were announced, the galaxy held its breath. All the surviving war criminals were found guilty of crimes against humanity. Kethvar and the ship captains who had ordered the targeting of civilians were sentenced to life imprisonment. Lower-ranking personnel received shorter sentences based on their level of involvement. But the trials were not about revenge. They were about establishing a new principle in galactic law. Elder Quindar, now ancient but still alive, addressed the Galactic Council one final time. "Let these trials be recorded in every archive," the old alien said in a voice weakened by age but strong with conviction. "Let every species learn what we have witnessed. The humans have shown us that some acts are so terrible they demand absolute accountability, regardless of culture or custom." Admiral Morrison, now wearing the stars of a fleet commander, delivered humanity's final statement to the assembled representatives of dozens of worlds. "We did not choose this war," he said calmly. "We would have preferred peace. Our people wanted only to trade, to explore, to build homes among the stars. But when someone murders our children, targets our wounded, and destroys ships full of fleeing families, there can be no compromise." He paused, looking directly at the representatives of species that had once thought humans were weak. "Let every civilization remember this lesson. Humans will cross the galaxy to protect each other. We will hunt across decades to serve justice. We will never abandon our people, and we will never forget those who harm them. This is not a threat. It is a promise." The war was officially over, but its effects would last for generations. The Veltar Empire was broken beyond repair. Some of their worlds joined other governments. Others became independent. The Veltar themselves began a long process of rebuilding their culture around principles of mercy and protection of civilians. On Earth, a new memorial was built to honor the victims of Titan's Rest. It was a simple black wall with 2,147 names carved in stone. Below the names was a single inscription: "They were not forgotten. Justice was served. The hunt is over." Tom Bradley visited the memorial every year on the anniversary of the massacre. He was an old man now, with gray hair and gentle eyes that had seen too much violence. Beside him stood Maria Santos, equally aged but still sharp and determined. "Partner, you think it was worth it?" Maria asked, touching her husband's name on the wall. Tom thought for a long moment. "I think about all the human colonies that are safe now because the galaxy knows what happens when you hurt us. I think about the alien children who will grow up knowing that even the strongest nations cannot murder innocents without consequences. The Veltar learned their lesson too late." "Yes," Tom agreed. "But they learned it. And so did everyone else." As they stood before the memorial, ships from dozens of worlds passed overhead. Human merchants trading peacefully with alien partners. Human explorers venturing into unknown space. Human families building new homes on distant worlds. The galaxy had learned Elder Quindar's lesson. When you assault humans, they will never let you go. But they had also learned something more important. When you treat humans with respect and fairness, they will be the most loyal friends you could ever have. The hunt was over. Justice had been served. And humanity had taken its place among the stars not as conquerors, but as protectors of the innocent and guardians of justice. The Veltar had warned the galaxy too late. Do not assault the humans. They will never let you go. But the galaxy had learned the lesson, and peace endured.